to share this with the.
Good call. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen. And just let me know when you could see it.
Got it.
All right, so yeah, to start, we were looking at expanding the original building, and so basically that set our finished floor elevation. We were already above the floodplain, so didn't have any issues there. There was a lot of discussion early on about the matching the hardscaping that's already out there, and that's kind of what how the white cement that was provided in the plaza areas north and south of the building. A big component of this project is the altering the route of the Riverwalk. And so currently the Riverwalk kind of goes basically abuts the seawall and comes around, and then it brings the basically Riverwalk patrons to the corner here, and then they cut across and come up and cross Cass Street. Our plan is basically provides this sloped walk, and there were many iterations of how this all kind of worked into the grading of the site, but basically we were looking at creating a direct path up this way and across. We could never get CSX to authorize this crossing here, so this route here the second line that I'm drawing is basically all considered part of the Riverwalk, and will need to be the city will be very sensitive about anything that happens along this route. But there is about a 9-foot elevation difference from the finished floor of the expansion down to the seawall. But this was designed so that I think it's 4.5%, or it's well under 5% to avoid having the handrails. So it's going to be a key element to not having to put handrail on this side. We have it on this side because of the elevation drop, but it's not an ADA kind of slope issue. We've limited the amount of reconstruction on Gasparilla Plaza. There might be some additional discussion on this. I don't know how much we want to talk about this now, but for the time being, we've limited the scope of the reconstruction on Gasparilla Plaza. The only thing this doesn't show is that there will be a utility trench here for the water connection, which I'll touch on in a second. This plan also shows this dog park up here, which is no longer part of the plan. Dog park will be down within Curtis Hickson Park, and the design for that is still a work in progress. Aside from this, there's also an elevation drop coming down from the track, and we've tried to basically the plan shows all grading happening outside the CSX right of way, and gets us down to this kind of plaza area down here at the seawall. And Weissman Freddy has a lot of renderings and perspectives that show this. Other thing this shows, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with by now, is there is a building overhang that comes out not really past the seawall, but significantly past the face of the building. And then there's the new grand staircase here, which takes what was already there and just expands it. I think we show full demo of that existing staircase and replacing it. So other site civil items, I guess we can talk a little bit about the drainage. A lot of the existing infrastructure basically came down from this curb inlet here on Gasparilla Plaza, and then it was routed through where the expansion is and down to a CDS unit before discharging into the bay. So we're maintaining the same outfall location, and we're not adding any more treatment for the existing areas. We're adding a treatment structure for the building up here, which picks up the roof drain, and then it all goes to the west and around the building, and then comes down through a 24-inch pipe, and then down the slope this way. And along the sloped walk, we have a linear trench drain that discharges at regular intervals into a header pipe, and that ties back into this uh, area drain at the bottom of the slope. Another quick thing to note is there are some perforated under drain pipes behind the walls, and we have all the details on those, but I just wanted to point that out. Sometimes they show them in the structural, sometimes in the civil, so just wanted to point your attention to that. As far as utilities, the sanitary is pretty straightforward. We have two connections coming out from the basically north end of the expansion, a 6-inch grease and a 6-inch sanitary waste, and they tie into an existing 8-inch sewer in Gasparilla Plaza. The water has been a little bit more complicated, and we're still in negotiation with the city of Tampa on that. This plan that I have on the screen here does not reflect the latest and greatest. I could probably get that up on the screen, actually. Let me do that very quickly here. But the main thing is the water department has been very firm on limiting the amount of infrastructure that they own. Probably should have it here. And so we have the proposed connection coming across Gasparilla Plaza. We do have to maintain this connection to the existing system. There's a 12-inch in Gasparilla Plaza, and an 8-inch that runs to the north. In the original or in the existing conditions, this line continues south and ties in into this line here. And so, but there is a loop that comes around the building and feeds it from the north side. So we're basically going to make that connection here and maintain this loop and then demolish this. So when we start talking about construction sequencing, this will be a prevalent item to as part of the enabling works.
And just
I'm
to
not sure I
clarify-
understand. So right now, once we cut that piece off that goes through the building, we're cutting off the museum, the hydrant, the park until we reconnect it through Gasparilla Plaza. But we have to also maintain that connection to the northwest. What were you saying? We need to. So what you've drawn in red, explain what that is. That's what's feeding it now, correct?
So this line already exists
Correct.
here, okay? So before you cut this line, you would have to construct
Correct.
this
Yes,
piece.
yes. Okay, understood.
Then-
I
then,
thought I heard
yeah.
something else.
Then you can
Okay.
cut and cap on both ends. The city wants another valve here. But other than that, basically, this is all existing infrastructure here, so.
Yeah. But meanwhile, so that additional 12-inch you show where the meter is, the new meter. So that's feeding that main, is that right?
Yeah, this will also need to be constructed because currently this line actually connects something like this. So
Yeah.
this piece is in conflict with the building. And so, yeah, this piece will also need to be installed prior to severing this connection.
Okay.
And just
To keep that
clarify-
hydrant, right? To keep that hydrant in service.
Well, it's not just a hydrant, it's the hydrant, it's the museum, it's Curtis Hickson Park, it's 2 hydrants at Curtis Hickson Park. It's a lot, it's everything.
Yeah.
Feeds a lot.
How does that,
Yeah,
from
and
that point to-
these are all parts of loop systems, but yeah,
Yeah.
to keep this over here, you know, and to keep the system functioning as per the existing conditions, those connections need to happen.
And just
But
to
it is a loop
clarify,
system?
Yeah, this continues out to Ashley, this continues up to Cass Street, and then this has a second connection that
Okay,
loops
so
around.
once we add that line that goes across Gasparilla Plaza, then that stuff is refed. The part where the new meter is irrelevant. Is that right? In other words, the new 8-inch is the important part, and that at that point we're refed from the east.
Correct.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
and Evan, these are the drawings that you have already. So what
Yeah, that's
Xavier showed-
correct. Yeah,
yeah.
these drawings without the dog park by the railroad, this drawing, yeah, these are what we have. I agree.
So also on utilities, so there's an existing gas line which we show an extending the 2-inch gas um, from that existing gas meter back here. We have the power lines coming across here and going into the stairwell. And we have the reclaimed is the next item that's also still being negotiated with the city and figuring out, you know, where the break is between the irrigation controls for the park versus the museum. There's a pit, a reclaimed water pit somewhere. We think it's somewhere over here. And initially we were proposing to intercept that line before we reach the pit, just taking that line back and rerouting it and making this kind of a utility yard or you know, just a meter bank or whatever you want to call it. So that's still kind of we're trying to figure out what would be acceptable to the city. They've been kicking this around for several months now. We have a meeting or we're scheduling a meeting with them to finally put this thing to bed. We think that the final solution will look something like, you know, rather than cutting the line back here, we would pick it up somewhere over here and route it directly to the north. And that will be kind of where the meter, the reclaimed meter will be up here somewhere. And then that will feed their irrigation controls, which are closer to this corner over here. And then there is kind of a temporary lifeline that will be routed around the site until the final is constructed, which, you know, will be sequenced obviously with the building construction.
So Evan, while we're on that topic, I'm gonna share my screen real quick, Zay, and then I'll give it back to you.
Sure.
Because it's kind of splitting kind of disciplines here. So here on the right or on my screen, what you see is the irrigation drawings. And what we've tried to indicate based on the city's requests is there's this 3-inch lifeline. Because basically the reclaim system feeds the entire Curtis Hickson to the south.
Yep.
So before we're able to put in this main line, the city wants us to have a lifeline that exists that you guys protect through and take responsibility of for the life of the project. Our
Yeah, we
recommendation,
understand that.
okay, we thought if it was against the seawall, it would be the most protected, but you guys can certainly adjust this proposal.
No, it's a good assumption. I like it.
Yeah, and is there something similar, David, for the lighting?
Yeah, bear with me. Let me pull up the electrical drawings, 1 second.
Hey, while he's doing
You
that.
talking about the
Evan-
lighting in Curtis Hickson?
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of show that on the electrical, what we have to relocate.
There's an existing pool box that's been explored with the city that's just adjacent to the existing playground. And it's in this terrace, this first terrace. And that feeds kind of to the north and to the south. And the city wants us to to make that connection spot and put the new panels at that location. They actually are going back and forth about how high they want them up the terrace because of flood conditions. So it's something that's being discussed with them right now. The other,
So,
the other thing,
uh,
sorry, to mention is, and it's kind of identified, let me show Zaid's drawing as well. The other thing that's being negotiated with the city that we'll need to work with you guys on is the existing Riverwalk has a series of pavers along the river. And they have, people have paid and donated their memories and their statements to it. So somehow with your subcontractor, the city's asking us to catalog these before they're removed. We don't know if you think that it's realistic to replace them, like to preserve them and put them back in place, or just to catalog the names and recreate them. We've worked with the Friends of the Riverwalk, so we kind of know the specifications and the requirements from their end.
Yeah, I've got one with my family's name on it. I know several of us do. Not there. Mine's not right there, but yeah, Dave is the Friends of the Riverwalk. El Presidente, past emeritus. Yeah, we talked about that and how we want to accomplish it. Definitely understand the cataloging. Not sure yet how salvageable they'll be because they are obviously mortared in or not dry set pavers or anything like that. But definitely understand the need for that.
I think too with that, David, they wanted to get them back in this as close to the same location as possible. So they wanted some sort of document to start the project off with that they could kind of go back to and to protect themselves if somebody's name went missing.
Okay. And did you say you've got that inventory? Sorry.
Yeah, that's part of what we need as part of the project.
Trying, Evan, trying.
I'm picturing a 360 camera and an intern.
for like a month.
That's fine.
Make sure you get the spell right.
We get them for 3 months as interns.
all right, so kind of want to go back a little bit to the reclaimed line. There's a lot of unknowns on this line. It wasn't designated in the survey. We, probably due to the depth. The line does come from across the river, and we've looked at atlases and some old records of, to try to figure out or approximate where it's at, but it's not a high quality level locate on that line. We went out to the site that we opened up that vault. The city met us there, and we looked in it. When we did open it, it was basically filled with water, but we found some meter tags in there. So we think that the park's reclaimed meter is in that vault. So as far as I think, I mean, I don't know why that vault needs to stay there. If we can intercept that line and we can just continue extending, just extend it to the north, then we can have the meter up here. Then, the city has made some comments about this vault and relocating it and all. I don't know that any of that is necessary, but again, that I think there's going to be a little bit of just field exploration just to get more information on that system. The current plan, like David mentioned, is that we would get that 6-inch line up to here, and then from there we would feed the controllers, and then we'll have the lifeline, and finally the final line would basically be on the west side of the building. And so, and we have, you know, the water infrastructure past the meter. It's pretty minimal, small poly plastic pipe. We've got a handful of hose bibs kind of shown throughout the plan. And then the domestic service to the building. We don't have a fire service from, we don't have a new feed for fire. The fire will be plumbed internally from the existing building. The
On
other
that,
thing,
on that vault
go ahead.
is that got a concrete lid on it? Is that like coordinated with the seat wall and all that good stuff?
Well, we've got some pictures of it.
Have you seen it? You probably saw it here.
Let's see if I could find them.
It's like right next to the dog park. It's kind of in the shrubs right next to it, to the northwest of it. And it does have a concrete lid, but we had the city open it up and it was filled with water. And I think they've said they've never seen it not filled with water.
So is your idea, David, that we maintain that same lid, or is the idea to put, and if it's already in the document somewhere, I don't know what.
The intent is that this is going to get buried with what, 6 feet of soil, 7 feet of soil at this spot.
Yeah, it's gotta get relocated either way.
Yeah, the city wanted to, at one point it was discussed whether it was just left in place and then the valves were just left open to the next, to this extended spot. There was back and forth with the city about how they wanted to have that exist.
Yeah, I think the most recent discussions is that they were not comfortable with leaving that vault buried at that depth and not have it accessible.
Yeah, I
But,
don't
but-
disagree.
But, you know, if we go just outside of that box and we cut the line there, it'll be maybe a little bit deeper than they'd like it to be at that one location. But we can, the new pipe, we can bring that up to within 3 or 4 feet from finished grade. And that's part of the discussion that we're gonna have with them in this upcoming meeting. Apologies, I can't locate those photos that I thought I had. But
No
we
problem,
can,
that's
I
no
can, I can,
problem.
I can share them. Yeah, I can share them. I'll find them and share them with the group. But that's something I think is gonna be currently not shown on the drawings in its final uh configuration, and will be a big part of the enabling work. The other thing, and I'm sure you guys are aware of this, but the CSX right of way. There was a lot of discussion with CSX about work within or adjacent to their right of way and all of their requirements. I think the latest discussions with them on the replacement of the track was that they wanted to replace it. So they'll have, it's part of their kind of union requirements. At one point we were talking about whether our team does the replacement with CSX staff present. We also know for sure that they want to do the signal replacement. That's part of their, they have to do that work, but the track itself is something that was a little bit undecided. And last correspondence on that was that I think they were leaning towards CSX doing that work, but there might be, depending on the schedule and the client's preference, maybe this gets pushed back into the museum's project. But in any case, even the expansion itself, because of the cranes and anything, adjacent to their right of way, they're gonna have some input on that, and probably someone out there.
Yeah, we had an intro call with them last week and we heard the same.
Okay, good. Let's see what else. We talked about the drainage, utilities, grading, pavement. Yeah, obviously, we mentioned the river walk, so they'll have to be an MOT or a detour for the river walk, which I think at one point we discussed, um, routing the pedestrian traffic over to Ashley and just kind of coming around and up on Cass, and because that's kind of the final connection would be to come up here. So that was discussed initially, but uh, when the time comes, there'll have to be a formal detour plan prepared um, and submitted to the city for that.
Did you guys identify what the telecom lines are, low voltage lines running through the new expansion? That have to go away, what those serve, or they're live, or anything about them?
Yeah, just to the west of the existing museum, there's a unknown telecom shown running north-south. And it kind of just shows it stopping.
Yeah, so there's looks like a coax line.
Is it
I-
just coax? Yeah, it says cable, I guess. Do we know what that is or if it's active?
Is that
I-
the controller for the,
for the irrigation,
It
possibly.
looks like there's irrigation valves showing all up and down it, so maybe.
yeah. They did mention that their cabling is in a general proximity to their piping.
Could be, because like you said, there's valves, it looks like shown right there, right there. Okay, do we know the other underground comm that's in the big trunk coming from the chiller yard? Is that specifically functions that go with the utility yard? Or is that the building service as well, or do we know?
No, I believe when we checked this was strictly for the chiller yard, so
Okay,
it
for
would go away.
controls and comms to the chiller. That's great. That's
Right,
good news.
yeah, yeah. I'll have to go back and double check what we had in our files. I don't remember where the telecom feed was coming into the building. Want to say it's from the east somewhere, but
So that's,
we'll
so-
have to
Do
confirm.
you have locations for the existing secondary feeds from the transformers? I'm not sure. Obviously, we know they're coming across the road there and there's an electrical vault kind of near that hydrant. I just look at the new water line there and I wonder what kind of conflicts we might have. One would presume they may cross. We don't have any other as-built locations on those though, do we?
So I thought all of the electrical, again, it's been a while, so I'll have to go back and check, but I always thought all the electrical was fed from these transformers and switch gears
Correct.
here.
That's what
There's
I'm
that-
looking
and
at. So
that's
somehow they
yeah,
get to that vault. And
Yeah.
if you look at your water line, it's crossing right through there. The new water connection.
understood.
I'm just
Yeah.
not sure if we'll have a conflict. I'm not saying we will. I just
Yeah,
didn't know if you had other as-built information on those secondaries. Obviously, we'll find them at our underground locates. Again, I didn't know if you already had some info on that.
Yeah. No, I don't have depth information on these lines. We generally, when it's water and telecom or electrical, we always have a little bit of flexibility to deflect over, under. So I don't know the depth on these lines, but if we need to, um, if we locate them, then we can, show on the profile whether we're crossing over or under, or that could be a field kind of assessment.
Okay, great.
The city doesn't, they scrutinize it more when you're going under, say, a sanitary line, then, they prefer to go over it. And they might increase their separation criteria for crossing under it, but it shouldn't be an issue. I think we're having to cross that sanitary sewer there, and that's really what's gonna.
Yeah, so we'll have to keep the
Right.
water line high to keep it over that.
Yep.
Is the comm line you were talking about, Evan, the same one I'm on, the one that follows the main electric line that goes out to the generator?
Yeah, that's the one I was asking about, Kevin. And it sounds like it only feeds the
That's just-
generator yard, basically,
that's
not the
just-
building.
Okay, that's generator and comm line all together. That's not a
Yeah.
main communication line to the building.
Yep. And it seems like the other one that you and I were looking at is probably irrigation control, which is probably why it stops. Hey,
Um,
good question for you, Zay. That right in the center of your screen right now. Do you know what that pole is? It's showing to be, yep, right there. What is that? Everybody's kind of, I don't know if it's an emergency warning system pole or if it's something owned by the city that the city's going to want back or relocated.
yeah, I thought that was it's got some cameras on it, and try to remember what that was. Pretty sure it's got a camera on it, but I want to say it's not a controller. The irrigation is all up here.
No, it's definitely
Um,
not. I didn't know if it was an emergency address system or, like you said, something with cameras. Right now, it's just showing to be demoed. I don't know if that's the case or if the city's gonna wonder where that went.
No, I haven't heard anything about that being some kind of emergency system.
Sounds good to me. Demo it is.
The other thing that and David might have a little bit more information on this, but we've identified some structures that are in the hardscape that will have a wonder cover on them. So those should be called out on the plans. So this is an existing electrical manhole. So we call out swapping that out with a wonder cover. And I want to say there were maybe one or two other structures that were in the hardscape that will get this a similar treatment.
The other thing right there is Aid, if you go to the bottom left, along the same lines as the pavers, there's 3 statues that are along the existing Riverwalk. And currently the proposal is that the statue and their base is kind of preserved and reinstalled in this location. We have it listed as by others because we understood the city was going to manage this. So that's the current expectation, but we're gonna talk to the city again, and hopefully that's when they give us their comments, they agree, or they don't change their mind from what they've previously told us.
Okay.
Yeah, I know from experience, we did that. The contractor did it for SPP when they were building that. We had the same thing. We had like 4 or 5 statues they had to relocate and temporarily relocate and bring them back. And after
I'm thinking
construction,
your
so-
office, Dave, would look pretty
Mhm.
good.
Put them right now. Right in front of
Yeah.
here.
Would look pretty good. Couple busts in there.
Mhm.
Dave, I'm really interested in hearing about the storm because we are demolishing lots of the storm system, and until that new storm is put in, even looking at the SWIP plan, it's kind of showing the new structures, not the existing. So I guess I just want to understand conceptually what's happening to the surface water once those are demolished. I mean, I'm looking at Gasparilla, and I think a lot of the water flows that direction, if I'm not wrong.
Well,
So once we-
Gasparilla, yeah, Gasparilla, it's at least at the roadway drainage, a lot of that is covered. It's all under the garage, so there's minimal drainage going into this inlet. I don't have enough information about the roof drains, but when we looked at the drainage basins, it didn't look like they tie into the system. Maybe a very minor area goes into this system. So for the most part, you're kind of at a, there shouldn't be a whole lot of offsite flows to manage. So once you um, tear out the system over here, this is going to be just part of your kind of, construction condition, managing stormwater, just, as long as we're not directly discharging into the river, anything you do during construction, that's kind of a means and methods. And I would say you have a place to connect down here at this inlet where ultimately we'll connect the proposed system.
So obviously the existing system from the park is still gonna hit that structure and discharge, so we're not stopping any of that flow.
Correct.
So from that north piece is none of the existing stuff ties into that we're gonna basically plug. Is that right? We're taking the entire highest
Yeah,
inlet.
yeah, you only get these two inlets that go this way.
Yeah.
The rest of this system and the existing museum and everything on this side comes around through another
What about that inlet up on Gasparilla? It looks like we're chopping everything to the west of that inlet on Gasparilla. Am I right?
yeah, so this inlet here basically was connecting into our system, but like I said, there's just not a whole lot of drainage going there because this is
It's
all
under the
covered.
garage.
Yeah.
So what does it do in the interim? It doesn't, so it only drains to the west, it doesn't drain to the east?
It's always drained to the west. It was in conflict with the building. So in the interim, I don't know what your sequence is right now. Are you planning to install the storm as part of your enabling work or no?
No, I don't see that happening. We don't have enough room as it is, for equipment and everything else. I'm not sure we're gonna be able to get that storm in without it being an impedance. If we
Yeah,
don't
so
need to, especially, it would be a moot point. So like Dave was saying, so that structure, that curb structure you have circled, there is no invert to the east. It's only the invert to the west.
correct, yeah.
Okay, and that's all getting demolished, so that really shouldn't matter.
Yeah, so
Okay.
there
And then
is
the surface water at the museum sidewalk between the garage and the museum where it is open, that's all surface water. I don't think there's an inlet over there, so that should be okay. Yeah, all right. Means Aid, if we find questions, we can always call you, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you have access to some yard drains on this side as an interim condition, but that just has to be studied and I think it'll ultimately just be part of your means and methods or your site contractor's means and methods on how to deal with just a small amount of drainage going to this inlet.
Yeah, so those yard drains that are on the terrace, south side of the museum, like you said, we'll just have to temporarily route those out somewhere onto the site there. Which looks like they're fairly small little yard drains. It's a 4-inch pipe.
8 inch, yeah. But yeah, they're well actually no, that's the water.
Yeah,
But
no, I was
but
looking at the
they're
ones
yeah,
on the south side. Those ones where you have the red line right there.
yeah.
Yeah, looks like that's
Those
4-inch.
go those are gonna be taken into our system, but there's a separate system.
Right, but in the meantime, once we demolish what's there now, those will go into nothing. So we'll have to temporarily account for that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and there's an existing inlet right where we showed the I-6, I believe, but they've had issues with that inlet. It was set too low and constantly floods, but you know that again, part of your sequencing is figuring out, when does that specific structure come out. Same thing, there are a bunch of yard drains along the river walk. And those may or may not need to be removed, at the very beginning of the project. That's, again, I'll leave that up to you guys.
Yep.
In the final configuration, this area here that's just adjacent to the seawall will sheet flow over the seawall. It'll be flush. You won't have that kind of that lip at the seawall. And so we don't have drains along this route here. It was just too low.
So that, I guess, from a coordination standpoint, that new storm pipe coordinating with that reclaimed water pipe. Because it's right in the same area, right?
Yeah, the reclaimed will be, so the storm will be at the, that's right, we routed this kind of at the bottom of that step with a trench drain behind the seat wall here. And then the reclaimed will basically come out somewhere into this green space and then just go directly north to where the reclaimed meter is going to be.
But heading southeast, they're reclaiming that storm run. pretty close. I guess it could storm then crosses it a little bit further down to the page south, right? Oh, maybe not. Okay. I guess it depends on how accurate that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now they show the reclaim actually east of that, up above under the terrace, but yeah. Either way. Hey, how about say the seawall? Are there no tiebacks in that seawall behind it?
There were. I gotta reach further back to help answer that.
My concern is where the retaining wall is, adjacent to the sidewalk. You get a pretty big foundation in there, especially on the higher portion, but at least that's further away. But even on the lower portion, we're pretty close to that seawall. I just want to make sure we don't have a conflict that we're going to run into there.
Yeah, so what would you expect? Or let me ask David, do we know the depth of that foundation? Because I
Yeah,
remember
we can
the
figure
tiebacks
out.
were probably 5 feet deep, if I'm remembering correctly.
I could tell
And-
You want to show your drawing?
No, I don't have that depth show. I'm looking for it on our studio session. I think I marked it in structural where I kind of thought it would be. Wherever that goes.
While I was looking at that, can I share my screen real quick?
Yeah.
So let's see. Okay. You guys see on the screen?
I'm seeing like a street view of the park.
So this is that pole you're talking about, Evan, right? So none of this up here. This is all lighting up here.
Yeah, I thought there was a security system on that light pole or on that pole.
And then
Apologize. A lot of those conversations happened. We've been working on this project since 2019, I think. So a lot of those conversations happened years ago, 2 years ago, maybe, and probably should have brushed up on it before this call, but I'll have to go back and dig in notes.
And this is that reclaimed water wall, I'm guessing.
Correct, yes.
Sure.
No, Dave, I don't know if there's much, we kind of talked through the, questions I had on the civil. We did a lot of the overlays with the surrounding city surveys, trying to figure out what feeds what, but just in our conversations, it sounds like we were pretty darn close in our assumptions. And I think you answered all of our questions on that at this point. Like I said, we'll reach out to you for sure when we find more. Looking at that seawall, man, that what I'm looking at on the foundations for the retaining wall is probably 210 to the top of that foundation, which puts you at 0.6 feet to the bottom. And they're huge. So I think the smaller one's 3 feet out from the face of the wall towards the seawall. The larger one's 5 feet from face of wall to the seawall. So again, I don't know what that seawall strung back would look like, but it's something that we kind of thought of and thought we may have some conflicts there. So I don't know if you can get information on what's there or if it's going to be a wait and see thing.
Yeah,
While we're talking
I'm-
about this seawall, is there a setback that we have to maintain from heavy equipment too? Last time I worked up against a seawall was doing Mana River Walk, and I think we had a weight, and anything over that weight, we had to be at least 15 feet back from the seawall.
I'm not aware of that requirement.
Okay.
But I'm trying to find it before I misspeak here. I might have to just follow up to confirm, but I seem to remember that there were two seawalls. There was an old buried seawall, and then the newer seawall was kind of outside of that. And the buried one is deeper, and so it was doing most of the retention. So
Is
I'm
that the
hoping that-
100-year-old bearings, the old seawall before they?
yeah, I'm hoping that I'm not talking about a different project here. I'm just trying
I
to
hope
find the
you are,
detail.
because that's gonna be right under our wall, and if that's doing most of the retention, that's gonna be problematic.
Let me confirm that and I'll follow up on it.
Okay, cool.
But it was deep enough that it didn't seem like an issue. That's what if I'm thinking of the right thing here, but let me double check and I'll get back to you guys.
Perfect.
Hey, Evan, we can connect after the call, but I think one question that I know Carlos and I had was about when we cut the site. Are we cutting to top of pile cap for the deep foundations guy, or where we're planning on cutting? And depending on where we cut to, are we going to need any sort of shoring or benching in order to facilitate that?
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of our thoughts, David, was that retaining wall, we're gonna have to put that in pretty early. Probably the first thing we do when we get out there after the demo, just to get the pad in place. So guess we're gonna find out real quickly what's there and not there. But it would be good to get information on the tiebacks. What do we have? Then perhaps even to James's question about the limitations on that new retaining wall, if there is any, because
Yeah, we don't have 15 feet back, so it's a great question, James.
yeah, I'll share. So this is a overlay set we were doing. I mean, it's coming up now, but the pink's showing the retaining wall. And I mean, there's not a whole lot of space between here and. So, the thought is that we'd have to fill the orange area and then kind of slope it off to the green. But we need the pink there to build the pad. So
Yeah, we're just so much higher than that Riverwalk grade, which is like right around 4 feet, so. We're quite a
then
bit
keep-
higher than that, even the top of or bottom of footing, we're 5 feet above that, so.
Then keeping that soil in place, how we're gonna temporary, so we don't have a washout every rainstorm, summer rainstorm, so. A lot we're thinking about here, so. I think that's what it's doing to it. Yeah, this isn't much. 25 feet. It's not hard to do. All right.
It's pretty
I think
helpful for me, guys.
Yeah, this has been helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm sure we have Zaid's contact info somewhere, Mark, Mike.
You're good.
Yeah, if you
There's-
guys, once you have your enabling plan, if you just want to run it past us and, just to see if, well, maybe we see something that was missed or, any additional input, we can probably, just take a look at it and,
That's actually great.
do-
That'd be
do-
really
do-
helpful.
yeah, do one final check.
Yep.
And then we can pull his email through the invite. I don't think we have full contact.
I can share it with you guys too. No
Okay.
problem.
Thanks,
We
David.
can,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, can I just put it here, I guess, and I can just put it in the chat.
there you go.
All right. Any other questions from everyone? Carlos? James, Tim?
I'm good.
No, we appreciate you showing up on short notice here, all of you, putting this together quickly. Big help.
No problem. Glad to see this finally get to this stage.
Yeah, I'll bet.
All right.
All right.
Guess
See you guys.
about it. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks everyone.